We often say history is written by the victors. But what happens when history survives without permission, passed quietly through language, land, and memory? Here's the counterintuitive truth. One of the most intact African cultures outside Africa didn't survive in a kingdom, a capital, or an archive, but in the marshlands and sea islands of the American South, preserved by people the system believed it had erased. This is the story of the Gullah Geechee people, and why their survival challenges how we think about national strength, legitimacy, and institutional integrity. Welcome back to Nations and Notions. Today, we're not traveling to a nation marked by borders or flags. We're entering a civilization that survived without sovereignty, maintained cohesion without institutions, and preserved identity under constant assault. The Gullah Geechee people live primarily along the coastal regions and sea islands of South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and parts of North Carolina. But their roots stretch far deeper, across the Atlantic, into rice-growing civilizations of West and Central Africa. What makes this story extraordinary isn't just cultural survival. It's what that survival tells us about collective mindset, resilience, and the moral choices embedded inside systems of power. As we move through this journey together, we'll explore origins, forced migration, social structure, trade networks, architectural knowledge, and the long-term psychological legacy of a people who endured one of history's greatest crimes and yet preserved dignity, memory, and cohesion. This is a story about identity under pressure, about legitimacy without recognition, and about how societies rise from crisis, not always through conquest, but through continuity. Before enslavement, before ships, before chains, there were systems. The ancestors of the Gullah Geechee people came largely from regions stretching from present-day Senegal and Sierra Leone through Liberia, Guinea, and Angola. These were not isolated tribes. They were complex societies shaped by trade, governance, engineering, and ecological mastery. Many came from the Rice Coast, where generations had perfected tidal irrigation, embankments, and floodgate systems. Rice cultivation wasn't just agriculture, it was civil engineering. It required mathematical planning, seasonal governance, labor coordination, and environmental psychology. These societies were deeply connected to global trade networks long before European arrival. Gold, salt, textiles, and knowledge moved across the Sahara and along the coast. Political authority was often decentralized but legitimate, rooted in kinship systems, spiritual accountability, and social contracts. Architectural achievements, from planned villages to earthworks and sacred spaces, reflected a worldview where land, ancestors, and governance were inseparable. So when European traders entered these regions, they weren't encountering raw labor, they were targeting institutional knowledge. This matters because the transatlantic slave trade wasn't just the theft of people, it was the extraction of expertise. And here's where the story takes its first moral turn. The American plantation system, particularly in the Carolinas and Georgia, was built on rice, and rice required African expertise. Plantation owners deliberately sought enslaved people from the Rice Coast. They wanted the skills, but underestimated the cultural consequences of that decision. Because rice plantations were deadly environments, and slavers often avoided direct supervision, this created a strange paradox: extreme exploitation paired with relative isolation. On the sea islands, African languages blended into Gullah Geechee, a Creole that preserved grammar, rhythm, and worldview from multiple African societies. Spiritual practices evolved, but remained rooted in ancestral memory. Social organization adapted, but retained African concepts of kinship, respect, and communal responsibility. Here, Isolation became a shield. While the institution of slavery was designed to strip identity, the lack of constant oversight allowed cultural continuity. The very system meant to erase individuality inadvertently preserved a civilization. This wasn't accidental resilience, it was adaptive intelligence. And it forces us to confront a difficult truth in political psychology. Oppressive systems often misunderstand the human capacity for meaning-making. Institutional power can dominate bodies, but it struggles to control memory. When slavery formally ended, the Gullah Geechee people entered freedom with something rare: land. Through purchase, inheritance, and occupation, many acquired property on the Sea Islands. This land ownership became the foundation of post-slavery autonomy, economic, cultural, and psychological. But legitimacy remained fragile. Federal withdrawal after Reconstruction left these communities exposed. Legal systems failed to protect property rights. Predatory development, tax manipulation, and political neglect followed. What we see here is a recurring pattern in history. Freedom without institutional integrity is unstable. Despite this, societal cohesion endured. Cultural practices, storytelling, basket weaving, foodways, spiritual rituals acted as informal institutions. They transmitted norms, values, and collective memory where formal governance failed. This is resilience without recognition, and it raises a profound question about national strength. Is it measured by power or by persistence? The Gullah Geechee people didn't rise through dominance, they rose through continuity. Today, the Sea Islands face new threats: luxury development, climate vulnerability, cultural commodification. This is a quieter crisis, but no less dangerous. As land prices rise, families are displaced. As culture becomes marketable, meaning risks dilution. The challenge is no longer physical survival, but psychological and institutional preservation. Yet something remarkable is happening. Legal advocacy, cultural corridors, language preservation efforts, and intergenerational education are strengthening collective identity. The Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor is not just symbolic, it's an assertion of legitimacy. This is crisis recovery through memory, and it reveals a deeper truth. Societies don't survive by freezing in time, they survive by negotiating continuity. The Gullah Geechee story shows us how moral choices about land, language, and legacy shape political outcomes across generations. So what does this story leave us with? It tells us that institutional integrity doesn't always come from formal authority. Sometimes it comes from shared memory. It tells us that national strength isn't just about armies or economies, but about whether a society can hold on to meaning under pressure. And perhaps most importantly, it reframes how we understand rising from crisis. Not all recoveries are loud. Some are quiet, generational, and deeply human. As we reflect on this journey together, we're left with a simple but unsettling insight. History doesn't always survive in monuments and institutions. Sometimes it survives in people who refuse to forget who they are. And that, more than anything, may be the most enduring form of power. We'll leave it there for today. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on how memory shapes identity, both personal and collective. And we'll continue exploring these hidden foundations of nations, legitimacy, and resilience together.